Hello, people, and welcome to BTG. It is your host, Mr. Shaker. You may know me from such songs as After Call and You Shoulda Took the. And today I wanted to discuss a topic that has been on my mind for quite some time. I know that everyone else has sort of a polar opinion, or I would say like a bipolar opinion on this topic. And by bipolar, I just mean they're either on either side. It's either yes or no for them. Now, this topic is for Black Lives Matter, or as they're known as the BLM, which, fun fact, is actually also an acronym for the Bureau of Land Management. So that's just a fun fact there, just so if anyone says I support BLM, of course they're referring to Black Lives Matter. However, on some rare cases they'll be referring to the Bureau of Land Management. So anyways, as I was stating, I guess I wouldn't say that I'm one of those individuals that would, of course, going out and protesting, just because I know that some of their matters of protesting would be, I would just say some of their methods I don't necessarily agree with. I do agree with the non-violent methods where they're just out on the streets speaking their minds. And the thing is, I don't understand why they just the type of protest that they're doing. Like, just any time someone wants to protest, they're always obstructing individuals that they believe may be involved with whatever it is that they're protesting against. Now, the funny thing about the Black Lives Matter is that they complain about police brutality, but then they were blocking highways and such, which I don't understand why you would block a roadway to get your message across. If anything, if you wanted to protest, why not go to the officer that committed this atrocity, or possibly committed the atrocity, depending on what occurred. Like, for example, with the Mike Brown situation, which people are saying Mike Brown was on the Republican conservative side of things, it was Mike Brown was a thug. He robbed this one store, then he was smoking marijuana, and then he attacked a cop. And then on the other side of things, people were saying his hands up, don't shoot, where he had his hands up and was shot, which this has actually happened in some cases in the past, where someone actually had their hands up and then they were shot in their armpits because of them having their hands up and the cop still shooting at them. However, in Mike Brown's case, cop did not shoot him in the armpits, either because, one, he didn't have his hands up, or two, well, the cop wasn't aiming for his arms, obviously. Now, for how the story goes with Mike Brown, from all the data that was gathered, it just turns out that he actually, which I don't know why they released this video a year later as to rile up this movement, he actually apparently bought marijuana from the store that they stated that was robbed, and as it seems went to the store, bought marijuana from the store owner, and then after leaving, a cop intercepted him, probably smelled the so-called ganja aroma emitting from Mike Brown, and with marijuana itself, it makes people more calm, but it also can make them more, how would you say? I guess you would say, I wouldn't say brave. As one person described it, just for the lack of better terms that I cannot locate the matter. They said that they had heart. It would give them more heart, so to speak. Like they'd be more willing to commit certain acts because they wouldn't care. They'll be in a calmer mindset. Now, this wouldn't happen for all individuals, but it's just that certain individual where they'll. Like this even happens with alcohol, where I believe on one show following, the guy referred to it as liquid courage. However, for marijuana, it would be a bit different. But most people do not use it in such a manner. But if he did smoke it or was under the influence of that, then cops say turn around. And just maybe how the city that he was raised in, he probably didn't care that much about cops. And then on top of that, with the marijuana he was smoking, it gave him a little boost of, say, enthusiasm to, oh, okay, looks like I hit a wall there. But yeah, it looks like as though he probably got some courage to actually act out, and so this is what occurred. But I mean, as the story appears, at least from what I could deduce, he bought the marijuana from the store, left, the cop intercepted him. The cop was probably asking him to stop. He didn't stop, and then I'm not sure if he attacked the cop or the cop attacked him, but whatever the case, they said they were fighting from the car, which means possibly Mike Brown might have got him. And then said apparently said his hand got shot. And him getting shot, him thinking the cop is gonna kill him, goes ahead and attacks him and gets shot, or comes at him and then he gets shot. So, but I'm not sure how that even occurred. If it was they were wrestling, and he tried to grab him through the window, and then somehow he the cop opened up the door extra fast. I'm not sure how that scenario turned out, but all you really know is he smoked marijuana. Then somehow his hand got shot. So his hand had to be in some vicinity on the firearm. And then, well, he got shot. But in any case, for me, like I do think that maybe someone should try to look into non-lethal firearms for cops. Not like the tasers and sorts. I mean, it's maybe something similar to that. Maybe something like off of, what do you call that movie? Triple X? Where he actually had the gun where he could shoot someone and then they would be stunned. Or it was like a fake bullet. I forgot what the material was made out of or why it was non-lethal. Because I believe it actually did pierce through their skin, but it just didn't kill them. So, if you were to specialize in that type of technology, then I believe we do have definitely enough in the budget to expand on these type of firearms. Rather than making things more lethal, we can make things more non-lethal, which depending on that on the context, you could develop those weapons such as off of Kick A, where what's her name? Chloe Grace Moretz, I believe. Her character Hit Girl actually had this weapon called a six stick, which if you did have something like that, I don't believe that many people would be protesting. So my thing is that for the movement though, BLM they were kind of on the cusp, and then finally they decided to erupt after the Mike Brown case, because I believe that Trayvon Martin, they actually did have more reason to riot. Now, for Mike Brown, it was kind of a case closed sort of thing. But the only issue I don't like about it is that when this evidence was released, they always release it a year after to make them look, I guess, silly or fatuous, so to speak. Just because it's almost as though it's a bit manipulative. It's almost like, why don't you provide all the information right then and there? Why would you wait for someone to get all riled up? And then it's almost like you look at someone who's accused of something, and they're like, or someone did, or I mean, let's say for example, if someone was getting bullied, and or you don't hear about the getting bullied, you just hear that they beat up this person, right? Someone got beat up, and then they're like, "Hey, he beat him up. He injured my kid. Now he's over there. Now his leg is broke. What am I gonna do? Hey, who's gonna pay for the medical bills? We should sue him." And they're like, you know, they're rioting, and and they're rioting, causing chaos. Out. And then after all that chaos, they tell them, "Oh, this guy, the person that got injured was a bully." After everyone came to the school, like, why didn't you say this before? Why wasn't this brought up beforehand, before there was even time to riot? But no, they rather than riot, cause chaos, and then right before chaos is caused, they decide to bring up this news to sort of disarm them. But if you're already mad, it's like now you gotta get rid of their anger. But hopefully, you know, they're better at, you know, you can get rid of the anger before that. But it's a bit confusing to be in that situation where now you have to switch up your attitude because you're wrong. But it's only after learning this information beforehand, or not beforehand, but after the fact. It's like, why can't you say this before people start to begin to try to take up arms, so to speak? Which, I mean, it almost seems like it's a ploy rather than someone honestly releasing this information. And these are, you know, our news sources, the media. And this is why some people don't trust the media, is because of this notion of games that are being played. And the thing is, when this happens so much, you start to lose faith in these systems. Which I know some people are, you know, a little upset about Donald Trump saying, "Oh, he's a dictator, yada yada yada," and or wants to be, and that doesn't trust the media. But who would really trust it? I mean, even people in Black Lives Matter movement, or those who support it, they should. I mean, I don't see why they would after how people are being demonized, especially some of the African Americans that were demonized back in the 80s, based on what I believe one of Nixon's advisors, I'm not sure who it was, where they actually said they were lying about the war on drugs. So all of the jokes that they were saying, like at least when I was in high school, would say, "Oh, bet your mama smoked crack," or this, you know, not growing up without a dad, yada yada yada. All these other jokes that they say, like missing the father figure, even though you can't exactly blame all of them on drugs. A lot of the problems, at least in cities such as New York and in Chicago, you could blame it on that. And it was only to disrupt these movements, which does make you wonder what could be occurring now, because this is declassified information. Probably know certain movements such as the BLM could be potentially infiltrated in such a matter. Even such movements at alt-right, even though like I disagree with their ethno-state, so to speak. I mean, I do disagree with that notion, because I am a humanist after all. However, just based on their ideology, where they are speaking about certain issues with I guess mostly. I guess the only idea I could agree with, not the we're being replaced, but the notion of, you know, you like just the notion of immigration, where it's like you should be careful who you bring into said country, or we should try to, or if you were about the, so I want to say a nationalist, but the America First, where try to help out America. But the only thing about it is, when you think of the ideology of America, it's more or less the nation itself, rather than, you could say it's the people, but then it could be the culture, but also could just be certain individuals in the nation. It reminds me of in Harvard, where they stated that individuals who were Asian were actually less likely to get a scholarship just because of the fact that they were Asian. Now, to give the people that were Latino, black, and even white a chance to compete, they had to restrict their applications, which, when you think about it, if you were just to say, let's just do an entire meritocracy, then at that point, you would probably have Harvard, mostly a school of Asian Americans, which still is American, and maybe foreign Asians such as those from, their ancestral landscape, so to speak, or geographical region. But if that's the case, then so be it. But then that should let us know that where is our education system left with? But dude, this is definitely a lot to cover in one video, so I'll try to continue off with my next video on Black Lives Matter, because I know I haven't spoke much about them now, but I want to definitely do that in the next video. Definitely have a lot to say. Well, people, I have my clock here, and this is Mr. Shaker, and I'm out. Hell, praise to your highness. I stand the fucking